I'll take anything I can get. See ya. That's trucks. We're doing great. So we're laying back there waiting for it to come out. You guys are already here, so that's cool. Paul, Clarke. How you doing? Nick. Nick, how you doing? Everybody? Okay. All right. So Frank's gonna run this live on the press. Good. So.
Marty.
Hey. Did you tell that to Bruce?
No. Hold on, I'll let it down.
So what's up?
So my name's Nicholas. I run Mayhem Madness. I do action figures, and we have right here, I think he's a toy father, Mr. Martin Abrams.
I'll take all the credit I can get.
We give him a hand. So I want to know just a little about growing up in the toy industry, while your father was doing it in 1954. Just how, just a little bit about how that was growing up.
It's an interesting question. I'm not sure if I had this question before. The other one must have just jumped right into the whole Mego story. At the end of the day, can everybody hear me? Yeah. At the end of the day, my mother and father used to fly to first Japan and then to Hong Kong and China, building our toys in the foreign markets because they were low-priced retail product. They retail for $1. So if you retail for something for $1, you had to sell it for 45 cents. So that means you had to buy it for 23, 24 cents. I mean, you couldn't make it in America for that price point. You had to buy it foreign because it's of that range. So they would go over every year to Japan to go out and source and buy product. And that was from basically 1956, a couple years after they started, they were buying from local manufacturers, to about 1963, 64, before they went out to make the next jump into China, which was Hong Kong. What they would do in those days, you just didn't get on a plane and fly to China. What you did was you got on a plane, you flew to Europe, and then you flew to India, and then you flew to Vietnam, and then your father got into 5 or 6 days later. You got into Hong Kong or Japan. It was when they were all going at that time by propeller planes. It was a long haul. And so by the time they came back, it was probably 2 months later. And they would come back with carts filled with toys. For us, Christmas really was March, because they went over in January and February to create and collect all these toys. They came back in March, and they would come in with about tens of boxes, hundreds of boxes of toys, which we would open up and they would lay out in our living room. And I'm looking at all this stuff and I'm making my judgments like everybody else makes it. I like that, I don't like this, should do that, should do this. Because I saw this whole range of stuff that I'd never seen before. And that was going on, by the way, for me. That was going on, I guess, for my formative years. I guess I was about 12, 13, 14, so I was about 20. Okay. Every year that was, maybe it was even younger. Maybe it was from 10 to 12. To get that sense of awe and excitement to see all this new stuff, this new innovation. And, I don't care what age you are. If you like toys, you like toys. You could be a 4-year-old, 3-year-old preschooler, or you could be an adult today who's collecting stuff that they played with when they were kids. So that was that process.
Okay, that's good. I want to know. Sorry about that.
That's good. That's good. Happens all the time.
So, would you say that Mego's toys are more action figures, or they're more collectible action figures? Like regular toys. I don't know, kind of, but if they're more.
Well, let me have it. They're clearly action figures. things. They've got 16 points of articulation, they've got accessories, there are dioramas, there are vehicles that go around. Even today, all that stuff is there. Our marketing strategy, though, because we were talking before in the green room, is that because of the licensing that's out there, there are only certain things that can be licensed that's in this articulation play. And therefore, by very definition, we turned around and made them collectible. So we don't have to go against what's in that toy department. I mean, for example, our product at both Target and Walmart are sold in the entertainment section. So who's buying product there? You talk about buying product at 16-year-olds, 24 years olds, 30-year-olds, 50-year-olds.
Men.
40. They're going back to their childhood, and now they go back and they can pose it on their desk or in the diorama or in a shelf. So they have that action play. What they're not doing is not picking up one character here, another character here. They're not doing this. That combat part is out, but they're clearly action figures.
Okay. Is there anything that you would like to license that you haven't get the property of, that you haven't got the property of yet? Like anything? Because I've been looking at Target and I see you had the like I said, the team with I was talking to you back there. I've seen some of the monsters, the lions, the Invisible Man, Frankenstein. Is there anything that's newer right now that you would want to get your hands on?
If you roll back what we did back, I started doing it, I guess it was 69. It was a unique year in New York sports. Mets won the World Series, Jets won the Super Bowl. I had become friendly with Joe Namath. And in that context, he was the first action figure that we ever did across the board. So we had the ability to reach out and get virtually all the different products that could, or characters that were during that scouring part of what was happening in the collectible market. Because no one ever did Batman as an action figure before we did it. No one did Star Trek. No one did Planet of the Apes. No one did Spider-Man. I mean, we were the first ones to do all the above. And so, why Mego is, I was out of Mego almost 30 years before we came back and did this. 25 years anyway. And the reason we did it because everybody was selling Mego-like product. Well, it's Mego-like, let's do Mego rather than Mego-like. And so we got all the people who are using that name out of the marketplace because we own that trademark and copyright. But what happened was, for whatever the reason, we had a unique team that was together in those days, and we picked brands that literally became iconic. I mean, when we did Spider-Man, Spider-Man was a comic book. I mean, with all due respect, kids couldn't read until they were 9, 10, 8, 7, but they were 3, 4, and 5. So it was where did that translate to become an action figure? Same thing in terms of DC Comics with Batman and Superman. A little different when it came to Cloud the Apes, because that was a movie.
Yeah.
But the brands that we picked that no one else was on at that moment in time became iconic. We made a decision not to do Dick Tracy. It didn't translate 30 years later, 20 years later. We made a decision not to do the Lone Ranger. It didn't translate over those years. The brands that we were fortunate enough to pick went over from generation to generation. And that was, if anything, of our excellence was the ability of picking those brands and then effectively working through the system and becoming iconic brands. And so when we talk about what we wanted to do, we virtually had the opportunity to do everything. There was only one brand we didn't do, and everybody asked me the same question. What about Star Wars? Well, what about it? We didn't get it, and it was different. But other than Star Wars, we have had the privilege of doing everything.
Right now, I'm going to bring it out to the audience to see if anybody else has any questions.
I think this is another first for you. In the early 70s, I asked my mom for Action Jackson, and she got me this guy. And I didn't know it was a big deal at the time. I just played with him because it was Action Jackson. but I guess that is is that really the first realistic African American action figure, and you made it? And what's the story behind that?
Well, clearly it's, because our whole premise was, when we started Action Jackson, was that we wanted to create a brand literally to compete with G.I. Joe. I mean, you had this 12-inch figure, putting it on, taking off clothing. That was the marketing strategy in those days, but you couldn't turn around and make a G.I. Joe Jeep, or you couldn't make a G.I. Joe motorcycle, or you couldn't make a G.I. Joe diorama, because in scale, this is not 1-to-1, it's 5-to-1. So when you build that Jeep, it's this big. So not only was it huge in terms of size and covering the room of the kid, the cost was out of whack. So that was when our decision was, we weren't just going to make a single character. We wanted to make more than a single character. So we went right away with both white and black. You know, Action Jackson, if you don't know the history of it, there was a coach at that time in New York called Phil Jackson. And Phil Jackson, when he was playing defense, used to wave his arms all over the place. It was like a windmill. And so that's how we literally want to call the character Action Jackson. But again, since it came on the foundation of the New York Knickerbockers, it was very diverse in those days as well. And so it became an automatic for us to do something like that. It wasn't going to think about it. It wasn't like, we had a mull, should we across the board. We're just, yes, let's go do that. So now we have it in multiple colors, multiple positions, totally in diversity. And then those characters, they can move into a Jeep, which instead of being $29.95, could be $9.95. I can remember like it was yesterday, we sold the Batmobile for retail price. In this scale, we sold it for $6.99 at Kmart. It was about that big. And what happened is the senior VP of Kmart walks into the store and sees our $6.95 Batman, and he walks around the corner and sees another, it wasn't a Jeep, it was an equivalent sized piece of plastic vehicle. It was $3.99. I'm just giving you for the years. We were twice the price. And he calls up the buyer and says, you get that Mego stuff out of the market, out of our stores tomorrow morning. That's the most overpriced product we've ever seen. And the buyer calls me up hysterically. Marty, you gotta do this shit. I said, be calm, give me the weekend to sell the goods. Let's figure out what we're gonna do after the weekend. Because this was like a Thursday. Call me back Monday morning. Oh, I have no problem. I said, I don't have any problem. It's all gone. No one had an understanding of the kids. Well, it was never about pricing, unless the pricing was, whack altogether. It was about branding, brand loyalty, what the kid could think about. Does he want to drive a Batmobile? Does he want to drive a plain old Volkswagen? I mean, you couldn't make those comparisons. And so that was part of what the premise was. You could get the Batmobile in scale, you get a bat cycle, a helicopter, in Action Jackson, a Jeep, a tank, across the board in that. So this is very fond memories, but we've always been way ahead of our time. That was part of what we were successful with. We could turn products literally in 60 days. The concept of what we had built in was really because we were always cash poor. We couldn't build brand new tools for every new product that came out. So the concept was, you keep the basic 8-inch articulated body, and all you really have to do was sculpt a new head, and then the rest is cut and sew. Well, when you do the molds here, today, they're $150 a piece. In those days, were $10, $15 a piece. Just as the heads. Now, you need a lot of heads, but you need 100 or 200 heads because you have to pull them out of tools. But it was very inexpensive. So because we had no money, it forced us to create a specific brand, 8-inch figure, costumes, and we could turn the product instantaneously. And Fonzie is probably the perfect example of that. Because when Fonzie got hot, over the summer of '76, we were in the marketplace and delivering it literally for Christmas.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Marty, I got a question for you. What is, first off, are you surprised by the fan reception and how much, I would say, Mego is, so many people were so excited when Mego came back. So many people are still so excited for the brand. First of all, has that surprised you, the reception of the brand coming back? The way it's come back, the way it's been received?
Yeah, I'm mixed feelings on that question, only in the context of, on one hand, I'm blown away by it because of the reception that people have grown up with and how they embraced their childhood. On the other side is we sort of expected, only in the context of so many people who were selling for so many years Mego-like product. And they were going there with a legitimate license. So we got a Batman license, I was like, Mego-like. But it was never Mego, it was Mego-like. And so in one hand, we were surprised. On the other hand, we understood we had something. And that's really the reason I think that the companies, especially the last 18 months, has been growing by leaps and bounds, is because we always felt that we wanted to go beyond the individual collector. He'd buy one piece and you had something like an 8-inch figure before we came out. And I'm talking 3 years ago, it was $30, $40. And so maybe you could buy a Batman, or you could afford to buy a Batman and a Superman. But then all of a sudden, the pocketbook is starting to hit. So it was my goal that we could do more of a collection, but we'd have to reduce the price. But if we're going to reduce the price, we had to sell more on the collector's part. So that balance became, we're not looking to sell 300 or 400 pieces of an item, where everything becomes very, very costly in product development. We wanted to move it up to 8, 9, 10,000 pieces of an item. And so as we're working this out, we're finding that sweet spot so we can get the collectors as well as not just the collectors, but the who want to turn around and build their collection.
That's great.
I'd like to hear the story about you working on interchangeables.
Which one is this?
That was, you're working with a designer in Japan on the hinges.
You talking about Transformers?
Yeah.
It's just, it's one of those stories that I don't tell publicly because at the end of the day, the reality check is it seems like I'm trying to take credit for something that I really didn't do, and so do it publicly. For me, is it's always been a no-no, and I say that with great feeling across the board. I mean, what really basically happened was we had Micronauts. Micronauts was a huge brand in Japan called Microman. We Americanized it. We made it look more like an American character, and we built that brand. Having built that brand, we wound up selling a huge amount of product. Star Wars then comes out a year plus later and just kicks our butts. So now we have to turn around and find a way to go back and compete with Star Wars. And we just didn't have enough time. But what Paul's alluding to is the same design team that created Microman in Japan, as well as the team that created Micronauts in America, were working together on building and extending, basically taking Micronauts and putting hinges on Micronauts. I mean, if you look at it, and then it became He calls it the interchangeables. It became a unique storyline in toys that was been extraordinarily successful. We did not have we're not privileged at the time to have the ability to go out and sustain ourselves to go out and bring that product out, which would have been, it was just, and by the way, even if we brought it out, doesn't mean we would have been successful with it. So other companies went out and did it, and they became hugely successful. So as I said, I don't like to talk too much about it because it's one of those subjects that it sounds like I'm trying to take credit for something and I'm really not. Paul is just privileged to know some of the other stuff that's been on.
I'd like to know, how do you feel about like resale? Because I was looking at some of like the older figures that you have, and I mean it's like the classic Superman and the classic Batman ones, and those ones go for like hundreds of dollars. How do you feel in like the resale market? Do you for it or
I'm totally for it. I mean, that's the standardization of how successful the product was. I mean, we had the Greatest American Hero. I mean, that went for like $13,000. I remember that. I don't hold me to that number, but it was extraordinary. And the reason for it is the product never came out. So there was a handful of samples that what we call pre-production, maybe 200 were made, if that many. And out of that 200, I have no idea out of that 200 which got into the hands of the public, but it was probably a tenth of that, maybe 10 pieces. And to be mint in box, because again, it was, even if it was mint in box, it was really not a production run. So when you have that product in that aspect of it, so that became a huge amount. So it really depends upon what the item was. We're very positive about that whole marketplace. I mean, the people, when I go to the show, I used to sign all the product. So anybody came up to me, didn't charge you. And then I picked up and I see on eBay with my signature, all of a sudden the prices tripled. So I'm saying, wait, I'm signing out, and that's not right. I mean, we turned around. That's when we started, to charge. We went to a signing show. This whole Comic-Con business has been closed down for so long. So I wanted to get back and talk to the people and get it in a film. So we went to a signing in Boca Raton, Florida, over the summer, and we did a signing, and we raised about maybe $2,800, and we donated all that money to the local children's hospital. So because then I'm fine with that. But the whole process of bringing all that stuff together is just, for us, it's very exciting.
I know you see nowadays with more action figures, they're more customizable. Like you can pop off pieces. Would you ever want to get into that lane of making them, like letting the buyer be able to switch up the action figure the way they would want it, or like add accessories to different clothes or stuff on them?
We would definitely get into that area now. I mean, that over the next 18 months, you're going to see a lot of that stuff coming from us in different sizes. I mean, we chatted a little about in the back room about it, but a lot more of that stuff is coming. Because that's how the adults in the room play with the action figures. They're not going in and boom, they're going, take this, change the face, change the packs, change the legs, change the hands. And so that's something, to get a different feel, a different look. So yeah, that's the adult play experience.
That's like I customize a lot. That's like I get into.
Just got a couple other questions. The original Mego commercials are on the internet, and they're epics. And they're like 3 minutes long. What kind of like Planet of the Apes? The whole movie plays out with your figures. Star Trek. What kind of input did you have into that creative process for commercials? And then I'd also like to hear the origin of the Mego name as well. That's how you got that name.
Well, I can do that one real quick. I mean, the name goes back to 1954. My father our family lived in Boston, and my father worked out in New York, so he would come home on weekends. This was before he started here. And then it came to the point where my mother said, we have to move to New York because we're not seeing you at all. Because by the time you get home on Friday night, you're exhausted, you're going back either Sunday or Monday morning. So we moved up to New York. And then we started the company looking for a name. And my kid brother, because of the family relationships, was always looking for where everybody was, he would yell out, Mego 2, Mego 2. So that name became very personal to the family, and so that's how the name Mego came. As a matter of fact, Mego 2 was our cable address in those days, so it was a very personal family name. And your other question was?
Oh, that was like, how involved did you get in the commercials?
In the beginning, I got very involved. I mean, before the company started growing. And the reason for it is when we first did the Action Jackson commercials, we had launched that product with a very big marketing campaign, up to the point where we hired the Friars Club in New York. We brought in Milton Berle. We're talking back in the very early 70s, 71. Milton Berle was one of the biggest stars in the world at that time. It was the MC. We brought the whole product line up and the trade, because what we were doing just embraced the brand immediately. And then we created these commercials that were just kick-ass, especially for that time, because it was animation. We put the product on television, and immediately the product exploded. And then we get sued by the National Association of Broadcasters because we didn't know any better that animation could not be sold to kids in kids' products. So here we are having this big brand, and we had to pull the commercials. And then we had to go back and redo all these commercials in a 6-week period. So we exploded, we came off television immediately, 6 weeks we were in hiatus, and then boom, we went back on television. And it sold, but it didn't sell anywhere near the velocity because we lost all the momentum. So all the future commercials, especially in the beginning, I was very much involved with only in the context I want to make sure that from the credit point of view, it could be 1, shown on television, 2, that it would sell the product, and 3, that it was entertaining. But after the first 2 or 3 years, when the company started really blossoming and grow, I had to step away from that, and get into other aspects of the company.
So I was wondering, because I was telling you, I'm a big toy person, and I actually would want to get into the toy industry. Like, would you have any advice for me or for anybody else that's thinking of wanting to get into the toy industry?
In what way do you want to get in?
I want to be like kind of more designing my own stuff. I know now, with technology and stuff, we got 3D printers, we can make molds now. Like, I would want to start doing my own thing, but making my own characters and my own like little stories with them, but making like a toy line. How would you think I'd go about that?
Well, if you're talking about your own stuff for you, and you're not talking about building out a company that, there's a thing called Indigo, where you can literally create your own product. You build it as you see it. You can put it on Indigo, and you can raise money literally for that product. And then once that money, that allows you to run and create whatever you want to create before you have to put the key in the door to spend all the money. Once you then do it, then you go on and take that success and you go on the internet and you go on and sell it. And now you have 3, 4, 5, 6,000 people who've contributed the money to you to make this happen. If you go on Indigo today, something, this is exactly what we're talking about. Something called CyberFrog. Have you heard of that?
No.
Go on and look at CyberFrog, look what they're doing with it, and how they're playing into the marketplace. And it allows anybody in this room who is creative, who can design, who can turn around and build a product, who has some engineering ideas, and has friends who can either be model makers, design makers, engineering. I mean, you can't do it all by yourself, but you can put 2 or 3 people together, and you can literally create something that allows you to go out and build a brand with limited resources, but with maximum creativity.
Thank you. Wonder if anybody else has any questions?
Sure, I'll ask one. How about, can you tell us about some of the product you brought here today? These larger size figures that are sitting on the desk here? And what to expect maybe in upcoming months from Mego?
This is, I alluded to it before in terms of what our plans are in terms of pieces and the individual products, interchangeable parts, boots, hands, legs. That's where we're headed. I mean, in order to do it, to max out the quality of the product and the design features that we want to put into it, it has to be in this size because of the retail price point that will be required. If I go down to a small scale across the board, then we take away the collectability of the brand. Where here we're looking for maybe a 1 purchase, maximum 2 or 3. You know, you've got Spock, you've got Clarke, you may have the Bull Queen, you may have Riker, you may have any of the other captains, you know, Picard across the board. So we're playing that now, but we have to find that sweet spot for us at retail. We know that there are companies like, for example, Hot Toys that are at $200 a pop. Stuff is magnificent, just quality-wise, manufacturing-wise, uniquely different. But the fact of the matter is they're $200 a pop. So, you know, but you may buy 1 of those a year, you might buy 2 of those a year. You're not gonna buy the collection. So we're trying to find out that spot where you can get a multiple purchase, but we have to be able to sell more than 1,200, 1,500 pieces. So that's what it's our first step to make this work. And as we start to filter out the mistakes, we'll go and build more of this type of product.
And we'll still continue to see the 8-inch line as well?
That's our bread and butter. That is bread, butter, coffee, creme brulee, the whole aspect of yes. And by the way, we're in the process of even going smaller as well. So we want to turn around because we know we're in the big C business. We're in the collector's business. And you can't collect stuff at $25, $30, $40 a piece and create a collection. It just costs too much. But if you get it down to $12.99, $13.99, $11.99, that means I'm talking retail prices. Then all of a sudden you get a collection for $50 or $60. Now you get 3, 4, 5, 6 characters. So that becomes a yearly commitment. So that's the balance. You know, the collector's business is not so much selling quantity; it's selling quality. It's selling quality and selling it through. And you know, our key is not to leave any forget about our warehouses. We have none in our warehouse. I mean, we do not build any product over what is purchased by our customers. That's our plan. But that doesn't mean our customers don't make mistakes. And so we have to keep that balance very close to make sure there's no room for it. Because you don't want to buy something at $20, $25 and see it in a closeout shelf at $5 below, you know, at $4.95. I mean, that way, so we have that balancing act that we have to create. We're doing a pretty good job up to this point. But the bigger you get, the mistakes are going to occur. I mean, that's just a fact of life. So therefore, we understand that. So that's our balance. And you know, Paul is our guide in a lot of these issues. What we should make, what we shouldn't make, how much should we make. Even if our customers push us to a number that is not what I call acceptable in terms of manufacturing, that's another area. We also have to be able to do is make a minimum run, because if you don't have this minimum run, then your costs get out of whack. So what is that minimum run? The minimum run probably is 5,000 to 7,000 pieces. Not even because of the individual product, which is an issue, but because of the printing and the packaging. If you don't print 5,000 pieces of packaging, the cost just skyrocket. So every aspect of what we're doing is that it's fine tuning how much you make, how much you sell, what the carryover will or will not be, and using that as a balance.
Is there anything you'd like to share today that maybe would be coming out? Or possibly an older line coming back
We have
from,
a very, very major line coming out called Dr. Mego. Now we have some very unique things coming. We hope to announce, we were actually quite kidding, I thought we're supposed to announce it today. Contracts have not been signed yet. But there's some very unique stuff that is parallel to what we do, but not quite what we do. But it's in the collector area what we do across the board. It will be a collector's piece. It will not be a toy. But what that balances, we try to stay on top of what's happening out there on a daily basis. And everything moves so quickly. That's probably the most important thing that we can do, is we can execute on the fly. So if something comes out on Monday and it's hot, we could literally be manufactured in 30 days. No one else can do that. I mean, I say begin manufacture in 30 days. Finish manufacture in 60 and have it on a boat in 65 days. So it's here within basically 3 months. Once you get beyond that, it's very tough to hit the cycle of a hot product. Otherwise, it's going to be pre-sold. Then in the goods are in the marketplace. If you don't know what that's going to be, you got to go chase it. So one of the reasons we want to even reduce our product a little smaller, so we can start figuring out how we can score it with air freight. Because if we can keep air freight to $1 a piece, buck and a half a piece, that's $3 on the retail. Now you've got another thing we need, adaptation. Pardon me. So, yeah.
Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but I could probably stay here talking all day, but they're telling actually I'd like to cut this. They're having to cut this right now. But I want to say thank you to the toy father, Marty Abrams. Godfather, toy father.
Thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it. Have a great weekend. And I'm glad we're back going to these conventions. It's been horrifying for us not to be able to come out and see you guys. Thank you for this, by the way.
Yeah, thanks.
It's very cool.
Yeah.